Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded That with Phil and.
Adam.
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Hi, Phil. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm fine too. I'm all right. Yeah. Another week.
It is, another week. I don't know, the past few weeks I've just been too busy.
Uh huh. Mm-hmm.
And, anyway, maybe I'll share at the end more about the busyness. But for now, I think we've got a topic to get into.
Yes, I do want to say because I just feel I was thinking about this. I do want to say before we go into our topics that our prayers go out to those that have suffered in the shooting out in Colorado.
Yes. Yeah, Colorado and then Atlanta last week.
Yes, yes,
It is heartbreaking.
yes. So, our prayers go out to those people in those situations. And I, as we're having these conversations, I hope that, we're trying to give space to voices as well. We're wanting to talk about things that we're interested in, and hopefully you're interested in. Hopefully, you're hearing from people that you may not typically hear from, and find them interesting. And so, hopefully,
Yes.
we're giving voices to people. Do we have any comments before we get into our topic?
I'm off of social media during
You
Lent,
said that.
so
You said that.
I wouldn't know.
I don't think there's a one gentleman, and I can't think of his name, but he is always liking our Facebook videos. I'm gonna find your name, and maybe I'll text it to Adam and he can pronounce it. But
I don't know why I would have any more success than you.
I mean, you're an IPA master, so I know.
Doesn't mean when I see orthographic letters that I know what phonetic letters they represent.
That's true, but I'm sure you figured it out. But anyway, so,
I'm glad that you have such confidence in me.
I forgot to tell people. So if you are enjoying our conversations, please like and share and subscribe and leave us comments. We really do enjoy hearing your comments.
We really enjoy that, dear audience. Give us some love.
Yes.
Or some hate. Well, don't give us hate. Give us criticism in love.
Yes. Loving, constructive criticism.
Yes.
That's what we could use.
Yes.
Never turn down constructive criticism. So, today we want to continue our conversation on process versus product. Adam, you was like, we should talk about this. And so you're going to be driving that conversation. I'm going to be asking you some questions to help you drive our conversation.
Oh no. Asking me questions, Phil.
Yes.
What if I don't have answers?
Well, then I guess we'll figure it out together.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
So, I think I want to like really easy softball first here. So like when did you hear and then when did you start to adopt this process? I guess we could say process over product type of pedagogy.
That's a great question, actually. Even if it is a softball. During my undergrad.
Okay.
So and to our audience, for those who are not musicians, and even for those musicians who are not ensemble directors, I am coming at this particular topic from my very narrow and limited personal experience. So forgive me, dear audience, if I'm just talking about choir the whole rest of the episode. But so in undergrad, I was not taught a particular process. I was not indoctrinated, to borrow a word that might have some negative connotations. I was not indoctrinated in any particular methodology. But I did notice that my hero, my undergraduate choral conductor, followed the same process. We had the same bag of tricks for what seemed to be the same musical issues, and I was too much of a receiver and not enough of an analyst to realize what was going on. Then I went off to student teaching, and I think that's when my master teacher, my cooperating teacher, Carolyn Locken, really introduced me to the concept of process versus product. And at that point, I realized that my undergrad choral director, who I'd been singing for the previous 3 years, was a process over product kind of guy himself, and I just had never realized it. So that's when I first heard about the topic we're talking about.
And then when did you? So I guess like really, out of student teaching, you just started to teach that way, right?
Oh, so you're asking? Oh, yeah, that was the second part of your question. Forgive me. Yeah. So when did I adopt it? Again, so student teaching really was introduced to how to. I was introduced in some concept of making a choir literate, teaching them how to read music. And then my master's degree was not a lot about pedagogy. It was not a lot about the process. Of course, process, we were discussing process all the time, but it was a lot about gesture. It was a lot about score study. It was a lot about choral repertoire and the history of choral music. So my interest in the topic sort of got put on hiatus. Then I got out into the real world and began teaching public high school choral music. And that's when I realized that I needed a process that worked for me. And every individual educator is going to have processes that work well for them. And what works well for them might not work as well for me, and what works well for me might not work as well for them. But there are methodologies that, music researchers and philosophers of music education have put into practice that I began to learn much more about. I had a very cursory surface level knowledge of some of them and before I began teaching, and then I realized how badly I needed some resources. Also, if you are not watching the video version of this podcast, the last 2 minutes have been phenomenal.
Well, they won't see it because it's all on you. So this is all happening. Yes, I would not be doing this.
What? Philip Woodard. Oh.
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to interrupt to give a little more of the behind the scenes. So I've been having some webcam issues. Found this solution with using my camera phone on my phone. Well, it's a camera phone, and so sometimes it's a little wonky, and it was a little wonky. So I was trying to figure that out as you were talking. But I think one of the interesting things of what you're saying is that it is a process. Like building the processes of in your teaching is a process in itself, right?
Building the processes is a process. That is very true. Yes. And there is and that's the thing that I'm passionate about now.
Mm-hmm.
My what took me from my undergrad days to the present to figure out, I I it's unrealistic, I know, but I just want to give all of those tools to my students. I don't
Just
want them
dump.
I don't want them to have to figure it out. I want them to, of course, figure out their own ways of doing
Right.
things, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to be floundering when they first get out. I want them to just be like, okay, if I do everything Dr. Potter taught me, I will be 100% successful. And then
Right.
from there, I can stop doing some things he taught me and start doing things of my own.
Right.
But I want them to have a really solid starting point.
So let me ask you, because I don't know if we really addressed, well, maybe we kind of did. We talked about goals, right? In our last podcast a little bit, because you said, if your only goal is to, have the highest level of performance in a concert, maybe you will just give them the music, just make sure they can sing the right parts or play the right parts, and then tell them, okay, I want you to decrescendo here, or I want then
Mm-hmm.
teach them how to maybe use their voice, but really not really give them any tools to be independent musicians.
Right.
um so how do you talked about music literacy being one of those goals. How does the process, what is the processes for your different goals? So we talked about music literacy, proper singing techniques, some of those things. Or maybe I'm it's a,
Phil, you are asking me basically to give a, a
well,
four-year education on our podcast.
no, that's not what I thought this would. I should have thought more about my follow up question, because I wanted this to be a follow up question to because you were just talking about how you're really figuring out you're figuring out processes
Mm-hmm.
for music literacy, right?
Yes.
Like what are so what are some of the other things, as you're saying, okay, we've gotten this music literacy part, but some of the other parts that you say, okay, I really want my choir to have this down really well. Like we talk about vocal technique. Maybe just give us a little glimpse into.
Do you want a list of musical parameters for which I have developed a process?
Maybe, yeah, yes, and just even a short list. It doesn't have to be really long, but just some of the goals that you say at when we get to this concert, because I mean, you do plan for a concert to happen at some point.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So when you get to that concert, I want my choir to be able to be more music literate, right? Better singing technique. What are some of those other things that you try to use processes for? Yes.
All right.
Long way.
Okay. There are two ways I could approach this. All right.
Okay.
So I think of the curriculum of any choir as being a three-legged stool.
Mm-hmm.
The curriculum has three legs, and of course everything else branches out from there, but the choir is the seat of the stool, and the seat will not stand without the three legs of music literacy. That is the ability to decode. Music literacy is actually much more than this, but for our immediate and most practical purposes, the ability to decode the notation on the page into sound.
Yes.
Second leg, vocal technique. The ability, once we can hear what it is that the written notation specifies, we can produce it with our voices with a pleasing tone, dynamic control, range extension, deep, full breath expansion, all et cetera, et cetera. There's just like music literacy, where there is a whole process that I will not bore our audience with.
Yes.
Same for vocal technique. There is a whole process. It looks very similar to the process that a voice teacher would go through for with a private voice student, but it has the extra complication of the fact that you're doing it in a group.
All right.
All right. And then Phil, you're my student, but it's been a long time. What's the third leg of the stool?
I'm gonna say I think it starts with an E. Is it an E word?
Nope.
You're not giving me. It's not an E word.
What's your E word?
No. I want to say musicality. That's not the word either?
That you can have a pretty decent choir if they're literate, sing well, and are unmusical. Now, don't get me wrong, musicality is super, super important to me. But they need something to be musical with, Phil.
Literature?
Yes, the repertoire.
The repertoire, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the third leg, is choosing high quality, diverse choral music that is enriching for them both educationally and aesthetically.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I was asking for. I'm sorry.
What is the E word?
The E word is ensemble, but I guess maybe that comes with literacy.
Everything you mentioned, musicality, ensemble, all of that, you absolutely need to do. But the three-legged stool, before you can sit down, you need those three things. Then you sit down and you get to work on the other stuff.
Ensemble, musicality. Okay,
yes.
Exactly.
Okay, and so, and that's where, Phil, yes, the other approach to your question that I was thinking, besides the three-legged stool, is what I call the musical hierarchy. And this, unlike the three-legged stool, I think of the musical hierarchy like building a house.
Right.
And what is the foundation? And the musical hierarchy actually has lots of different things.
Right.
And it has different levels. So we're starting at the base level, the foundation of the house. You must, in order to build a house, you must start with the foundation. You are not going to start with the roof. And here's what really gets me, okay? And I have been in these kind of rehearsals, you probably have been too, where there is no foundation in sight, there are no walls, windows haven't arrived, and someone in that conductor is trying to hang the drapes. And I am just like, why are you worried about, that idiosyncrasy of the, Austro-Hungarian Latin when we cannot sing the notes and the pitches? Like, stop telling me how it's Regina in Austro-Hungarian Latin, not Regina. Look, who cares? I don't know what notes Regina happens on.
Right. I just put it at the top of the score and then to be identified at a later date.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, obviously I do not appreciate when a conductor is just all up in showing you how much they know without actually empowering you first to be able to sing. Yeah.
I mean, so the whole idea now, as I've started to teach, really dealing with the idea of really taking away the text to focus on the foundation.
Yes.
And trying to help my students understand that we need to take away the text so that we can build that foundation of rhythm and pitch.
Yeah. No, it's crucial. I have found, this is an aside. Oh, this is a nerdy episode because we're so in the weeds of choral music. But, so non-choral musicians, apologies again. But, Phil, I have found with students who are maybe not musically literate yet, but who can read English. If you're doing a piece in English, the printed words can be an anchor. just to help them
Okay.
know where they are because they're not yet comfortable. So,
Mm.
there there are times to violate the sequencing of our own processes
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if you sense that it could be helpful to do so.
Right, 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 right. Yes. So again, I mean, because that to help them say, okay, this is where I sing do re mi.
Yes,
You know,
exactly. Like,
yes, yeah.
like so do mi so mi do mi. Do you see the words Amazing
Mm-hmm.
Grace?
Mm-hmm.
Sing it again. So do mi,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Look at the black dots above the words Amazing Grace. And repeat
Right,
after
right.
me as you look at the dots. Don't look at the words. Look at the dots above the words. So do mi do mi.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's very helpful. That's very helpful. I mean, yeah, we are getting some process. I had to say, I was thinking today, and we're gonna go on to our next question. But I was thinking today, I really am. Before I left Roberts, I talked about getting together kind of a club for sight reading is
Mm-hmm.
what we'd call it, and we had started meeting. Some some chorale members were meeting, and I think we even may have had some one or two instrumentalists, and I hope they're still doing it. And I was like, man, I would really like to, find some people who just get together, not I think we did it like it wasn't to say, oh man, I can really show you that I can sight read, but
Mm-hmm.
to really get together and to maybe just hone that skill and just practice,
Yes.
taking that piece
I
of
think
music
I think that's
and
a
reading it.
terrific idea. Here's the I would love to do it socially. This is a
Mm,
thing that used to
right,
happen, right? Like
right,
you could I don't know, 50 years ago, like social activity, come over to my living room and we'll do a hymn sing.
mm-hmm,
Come over to and so that's a form of it.
right,
Or earlier in history, and still in some corners of the world, there are shape note hymn sings where
mm-hmm,
it's a cappella. It's not in your living room. It's not accompanied. It is like you go you to the hymn to the shape note, you patch exactly, and you sing like
love
with
that.
horrible tone. But what do you read on first? You read the shapes. The
Mm-hmm,
shapes correspond to a solfege syllable. And I mean, it's really brilliant, actually. It's a brilliant system. It demonstrates the power of verbal association to help
yeah,
us make, produce tone. Anyway, and then even earlier than that, think of what was happening in Vienna with the Schubertiades, with Schubert and his buddies getting together, and the entertainment. There was no television. The
mm-hmm,
entertainment for the night was art song. The
mm,
like leader were sung by 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 singers, and pianists played them and entertained their guests, and not large crowds, not recitals, just come over to my house and we'll sing some Schubert and then we'll play a board game.
yes, yeah, yeah. We gotta bring that back. I mean, we gotta bring that back. You gotta,
Well, we do. I don't know how to. It is an indictment of music education in the United States that if I were to throw a party like that with people who had the skills to sight read music they were not already familiar with,
right,
it would exclude most of their like spouses. I
right,
wouldn't be able
right,
to
right,
invite a lot of my friends who I would invite to any other kind of party.
right.
It would feel like I was being exclusionary.
Mm-hmm. Elitist.
Maybe I need to have a sight singing community, a community sight singing club. And then those people could start throwing sight singing parties. Okay, this is probably not an idea for a venture that would be super successful commercially.
I mean, I don't know. I hope that maybe after, maybe this is a post-pandemic idea. Like we need some type of different connection, and maybe it starts very simply. Maybe I don't know. It starts very simple. Like we just like you like to sing. Maybe we'll sing something. Maybe we don't even use music. And
Hmm.
then of course it builds, and then you get to the sheet music, then you
Yeah.
actually get to the score and parts, and then art
Yes.
song and arias. Like it.
I'm looking for my side hustle, Phil.
Okay,
Do you think I could
hey,
do this as a side hustle?
I think you could. I think you could figure it out. I mean,
Yeah.
don't
I
give up
mean,
on the podcast. Don't
oh
give
no,
up
the
on
podcast. That's what I'm really gonna get rich. But yeah, I
right,
mean,
right.
I did my taxes.
You did it.
I did my
Okay,
taxes, and I made significantly less money in 2020 than I did the year before. I mean, like
right,
I'm not destitute. Don't get me wrong.
right.
I'm paying my bills, and I'm very, very, very fortunate to be employed. But
Hmm.
the money went down.
Yeah, I imagine it did for a lot of people. I imagine it did for a lot of people. I know it did. Let's go on. I mean, we're sharing ideas and business ideas now.
This is true to form with S2.Ep.11,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
we have our outline here on our Google
Mm-hmm.
Doc. I'm looking at it right
Mm-hmm.
now,
Yes,
and we have strayed from our
we
structure.
we have, but we haven't though, because this is like really good. Like I think what you're saying, like um, yeah, we should have a more music literate society. I think that's what we're wanting. We want to have a more music or a greater music appreciation, a deeper appreciation
Yes.
for music, a deeper appreciation for music. Let's go on, because I think this, if that was a controversial statement, let's get into like this, because I was asking you last week. I was like, what should I title this, and you said to me pedagogical controversy, like that
Mm.
process versus product is controversial. Why do you say that?
Um.
Take your time.
Okay,
Take your time.
I could tell you, I could tell you why, and keep it pretty generic. And I'm afraid
Okay.
that would be boring. Or I could give you an example, and
Mm-hmm.
I could, and my example would be salty. Do you want bland or salty?
I'm not even on camera right now. Hold on one second.
What? You're not on camera.
Well, I just went back to the grid view, but
Phil, no one is listening to this podcast, or no one is watching this podcast for me.
I'm
Oh,
interviewing you basically right
oh,
now.
Philip.
But anyway, what your question to me? As somebody who enjoys flavor, I would never
Mm,
ask for bland food.
okay.
but I want to say this too, that I want to be, I know that this is an area in which you work, so let's be mindful
Mm.
of that as well. So this is your livelihood.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make this up. I mean, this is based on true events, but not
Okay,
true.
true crime
Yeah,
story.
this is historical fiction. All right. Okay. Uh, okay. I'm gonna be. Let me state this for the audience very,
Mm-hmm.
very clearly. This is not true. Okay. I'll tell you why. Okay. So I'm going to use an example of one of my student teachers going out with a master teacher. And so I want our audience, to know that
This
never,
is not
ever,
true.
ever has a master teacher said this to one of my student teachers.
Okay.
Okay, someone else in my life said this, but I'm not gonna. obscure them by telling a story instead. So I had a student teacher, very conscientious, and very process oriented, like her professor, Dr. Potter. And she went out to teach at with a really terrific high school choral program, and she was doing everything right. In one of her conversations with her master teacher, she said, I am so excited to teach sight singing, and especially to be helping students learn their repertoire using solfege, because that's what we do with Dr. Potter every day. And her master teacher looks at her and says, well, I think solfege is a crutch. And my student teacher, again, this is all fiction, my student teacher, good student teacher that she was, didn't say anything, didn't disagree, just came back to me that night, came back to campus after her day at school and knocked on my door and said, Dr. Potter, my master teacher said that solfege is a crutch. Does that mean that we're bad for using it? Does that mean that our students aren't going to be, like we're handicapping our students? I said, well, does your master teacher use the piano? Oh, yeah. And what does your master teacher use the piano for? Oh, everything. Well, what do you mean? Oh, yeah, whenever the students are singing, parts are being doubled on the piano. The piano is always reinforcing what the students are singing. And I said to her, sounds to me like you've found the real crutch.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so, all right. I don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole. This is related to process versus product, but let's just, if your process is a process that will make the student an independent musician, but still perhaps reliant on the process. Let me back it up. Let's not even apply it to music. If your process is a process that will make the person reliant on that process, but independently so, that is an inherently better process than the process that will make the person reliant on you.
That's good. You're preaching. You're preaching right now.
That's a very long-winded sermon, but there's my I made that up on the spot. That little story. I'm kind of proud of myself. I'm a horrible liar. I guess if it's a story, maybe I'm storytelling, right?
No, that was good. That was good. I'm seeing this in other areas where I work with my students at school. I help out the kindergartnens with math, and we use whiteboards. And in the book, they give us these we call them strategies. And I'm always bringing them back to the strategy. You're asking me for help, and my job as a teacher is to say, okay, let's use this strategy to help you figure out the answer. I'm not going to tell you the answer, but I'm going to help you use this strategy to figure out the correct answer. And when you figure it out, I want you to know, not just say, "Oh, is this right?" No, but what is that what you got when you use the strategy? Then that's the answer.
Yes.
and then they can go away and apply that strategy to other things.
Yes.
Yeah, you preaching, brother. You
Mm.
preaching.
Yes.
You preaching. So can we dig into like, so that was one example of what you're saying, the that where it can be controversial. People see some of our processes as a crutch. I mean,
Mm.
is it just that thought?
I think the other controversy is uh, for teachers who need things accomplished at at the beginning of their time with their students, need things accomplished very quickly.
Mm.
I think that that is the other that is one of the other controversies. Like, I cannot be process oriented because I have a concert next week. Okay,
Mm.
actually, yes, you're right. Which is why you should have begun the process a couple months ago.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
we all, you know, I'm recording music for with my choir next week, and I sat down at the piano and I played a part today. Because
Mm.
no, I do not have time to isolate this on total syllables. I do not have, I just need this fixed now. Quick
Mm-hmm.
and dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I understand that.
Mm.
I think we need to do everything in our power to change the circumstances then.
Yeah, yeah. I I think one of the things we when I followed you and transferred to Roberts, the I one of the things I think about is the big blocks versus the very intricate Lego set of maybe the Death Star. You know, right? You building this big block like dump truck that like that's where you start,
Right, right.
with these big blocks, and you're holding it with two hands, and then now where the choir can really, you can take something like the Death Star and maybe do that in the time that it took you to put together
Mm-hmm.
that big block truck.
Yes, no, that's right. And the process is multiple years in the making.
Hmm.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
The one of the things I think about, and I hope you have an answer for this. Um, the or maybe we can maybe point to a resource, but like when I think about babies or infants, um, do you think we are really process or very thoughtful in how they start to walk and talk? And do you think that could be?
Oh, well, I can't speak to motor skills. That is outside of my wheelhouse. We could ask my
Okay.
sister, who did some training in occupational therapy and is a physical
Uh-huh.
therapist now. We could
Mm,
ask her that question. Now, when you talk about language, talking,
mm-hmm.
do we think about the process? No.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a process? Is Did God create our brains to cognate certain things in a certain sequence? Yes. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
so powerfully, yes.
Mm,
How do we learn language? Okay, this is a conversation for another day. We learn language according to the discrimination learning hierarchy:
mm-hmm.
oral,
Mm-hmm.
verbal association,
Mm-hmm.
partial synthesis,
Mm-hmm.
symbolic association, composite synthesis.
Yeah, whether we're thinking about it or not, we are process oriented. That's what we're saying,
Our
right?
brains are process oriented. So the
Oh,
best teaching, likewise, is process oriented.
yes, yes.
Teaching that aligns with the ways God designed our brains to work will be more effective than teaching that goes against the ways God designed our brains to work.
Well, yeah, well, yes, I would think so. And as Christians, I think we do believe that God created us, and so we would want to try to understand. I mean, and I think that's good scientists, right? I think a good scientist, anyone who's trying to understand the world, you would say, what is it? And I think we see that like in the way that we've created, we've taken from nature and used that. And I want to say in a positive way, we have learned from the way God has created things. And so yes, I would hope so that if we see that process, that we would want to adopt that more and more in our teaching.
Yes. Yeah. And it takes some uncovering, right?
Yes.
This is why, neuroscience is such a fascinating field, because the brain is still a frontier, an
Right.
unexplored frontier.
Right. I mean, like the whole idea, like we can't really explore it because you have to have it wide going. Like you to you we want to look at it's like looking at it, taking off the hood of the engine while the engine is running, and that means taking off our skulls while we're alive.
Yes, there would be some ethical
Just a little. Just
Yes.
a little.
Yes.
Just a little bit. I think we're getting close to time, but I think this kind of leads to a natural question of, when we're trying to develop these processes, like understanding the parts that we need to even make smaller, right? So like, can you kind of talk about like how have you, like those blind spots that you didn't see before, and you're like, okay, I need to make this even smaller for them to grasp.
Every educator knows that we must meet our students where they are. But your question is related to the question of how do we know where they are?
Right.
Yes. And, I have not developed a process for that other than open ears and open eyes. And when you see or hear confusion or inaccuracy, that's when you'll know. And anticipating that becomes much easier the longer that you work with that group of students.
Right.
And then anticipating it in general becomes easier the longer that you teach any group of students. And then being prepared for anything. I'm thinking now of like when I walk into an area all-state choir, or I'm guest conducting a festival. I do my due diligence, and if I know a guest conductor they've had in the past, I'll ask that person, or I will ask the person who invited me to do the guest conducting, tell me about how prepared they are. I will do my due diligence, but the fact of the matter is that from personal experience, I have zero knowledge of where these students are. So it begins in the warm-up.
Right.
What sounds do I hear? Okay, these students either have or have not been taught how to sing well. Okay, if they have, well, right, we've got a fighting chance that maybe they've also been taught. They arrived well prepared on the music. But you know what? If they haven't, there's also a fighting chance. They might have arrived prepared on the music and they just sound bad. It's my job. I relish. Of course, it is a very satisfying experience to walk in to a festival choir where they are very well prepared and already singing well with good tone, basic, and then you really start to work on nuance and subtleties and phrase shape and and spontaneous conducting and heightened meaning and lots of and conversations about the music and the text, and all of that is so rewarding. But you know what else is rewarding? I mean, it's harder work, but it's also super rewarding for a choir on Friday morning to sound like poop. And by Saturday afternoon, when the concert happens, for them to sound maybe not great, but decent. And those are the times that, that their own teachers will come up and just like, I can't believe the difference. I can't believe the difference. And sometimes when you go from good to great, people cannot hear the difference. When you go
Right.
from bad to okay, people hear the difference.
Right. Yeah. 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 Man, I remember you and Dr. Smith were talking about that when she was on, and I wonder if that's some of the anxiety, like trying to anticipate, um, like where, where they're gonna need my help,
Mm-hmm.
and like what was the first time? Because I think you've done several, all states and these type of things by now, I believe, right? Um,
I've done a number of, so here in New York, like their regional, regional things are called area all-state.
Okay. And so
Yes.
like what was one of those maybe first experiences where you was like, okay, I'm gonna really need to do some work. I gotta pull out the tools because I'm really gonna have to.
Oh, I remember conducting. I think it was an all. Was it an all? No, it was a district. When I was in Mississippi, I
Hmm.
conducted a district festival, and I had. I think I was paid. I can't remember. It was like a whopping sum of like $112, and for and and who did I earn? Did I earn every penny? Oh, it was. But you know what? I remember it still, and I loved those kids.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
really, they were they they just didn't know what they didn't know,
Right.
you
Right.
know, and
Right.
that. But
Yeah.
they and there were some attitude problems. I remember, but I think unlike maybe this is the impression I got. Of course, I have no way of knowing for sure, but unlike their whoever they were singing for in school, um, I would not let individuals get away with like slouching in rehearsal. Right? That's bad for
Mm-hmm.
singing. You cannot sing
Mm-hmm.
well if you don't have good posture. And like hold your music up so that you aren't. If your music cannot be on your lap.
In your
The
lap.
end.
Yes.
Like this
Yes.
is non-negotiable. Um, so I anyway, I enjoyed it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I just enjoy teaching, Phil. This is, but like even when I am like, I don't enjoy being a disciplinarian, but if I can make some music alongside being a disciplinarian, well, right, so be it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're
I
getting
mean,
way we're this
we are.
we're
We are.
discombobulated and we're over time. We
No,
should.
no, we're not discombobulated. I think this is if
I am.
somebody
You're not.
if somebody has listened this whole time, and if they are a teacher, I hope they've been inspired, or at least if you have
Mm,
critiques, we don't mind hearing your critiques too, but
no, you can. You can.
join in the conversation. What
Yeah.
you got to say?
No one's been inspired, but you are kind.
No, no, I've been inspired. I've been inspired. So, but let's. I get so yeah. That was. I think that was a great place for us to end. It was a great place for us to end
Mm-hmm.
the conversation. So let's go on into our last two segments, um, current events, and what we've learned. Um, I guess I'll start us off on current events. Um, I was listening to something today while I was exercising actually, and they were talking about the Ghanaian president has made a decision about the resources of the country, and so I went to watch the video,
Mm-hmm.
and of him actually making this announcement, and so. Ghana and Switzerland has had this agreement for several years where they export their raw materials to Switzerland, coffee and I mean not coffee, cocoa and gold,
Mm.
and in this announcement, it was I mean I maybe I'll link the video because it was such a very diplomatic exchange between them. And in that, in his speech that he was giving, he says to them that, Ghana has been making progress. We've been, we've been become an economic power in Africa, and we want to start to make more of our own chocolate, make and
Mm.
and send maybe for these things to benefit our people and our economy. And I thought that was inspiring. It was very inspiring to hear. So that's my current event today.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, very inspiring. So,
Great.
what about you?
Um, Current event slash observation about the world slash hope for the future. Just the acceleration of the COVID vaccinations. I'm very encouraged by how many people are getting vaccine appointments and getting vaccinated, and more people in my life around me are getting vaccinated. I'm thrilled for that, and I think I just hope it continues so that we can put COVID-19 behind us.
Yes, yes, yes. So, yes, I agree. Well, why don't we go into our last segment? What did we learn? Um,
I learned
mm-hmm.
that it's very hard to maintain my train of thought when you are adjusting your webcam in a bunch of different directions. And I'm like looking up your nose, and then I'm looking at the screen, and then I'm like looking at the ceiling fan. And yes, it was discombobulating.
Uh, uh, uh.
What did you learn, Phil?
Um, I I think that we're really, if the more we become process oriented, the more we are just really tapping into, and I would say maybe innate um, part of our being and
Mm,
the way we've learned. So
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Good place to end.
Right.
Anything else for the good of the order?
No, that's it. I think that's it for today.
All right. Well, dear audience, I will say bye for now.
Adios.